Seeing is believing, or at least that's what we're told. Especially on the matter of God, people always say, when I see, then I'll believe. But let's ask another question. Is that even true? You see, if we do a simple thought experiment, let's say that you're out and about and you're doing whatever you do on a normal day, and all of a sudden you see a giant gate in the sky, and you stop what you're doing and you look up and you see this gate slowly opening, and behind the gate is God, angels, heaven, hell, everything that you've heard about is right there. What do? You see, if seeing is believing, it's very straightforward. You see, now you believe. But what we find when we ask this question to real people is that we get a very mixed bag of answers. People who already believe tend to believe, but people who don't believe tend to say things like, I would think I'm getting schizophrenia, or maybe there's a hallucinogenic gas in the air, or maybe I put the wrong type of mushrooms on my omelet this morning. No matter what you personally respond to this question, we learn one thing for sure. Seeing is not believing. In fact, it is the perceptions that you already hold that have a big impact on how you perceive future events. But let's be real. Perception doesn't really matter. If I perceive a Lamborghini on my driveway, it does not change the fact that it is still a Toyota Corolla. So perception and reality have very little correlation to one another. So now the question really is, what is reality? Is God real or is God not real? And how would we know? If seeing is not believing, then what is? The famous philosopher Plato delved into the subject of epistemology, which relates to how we learn and how we gain new knowledge and things like that. One very interesting thing that Plato mentioned was that knowledge involves us taking new information and categorizing it in our brains. Is this knowledge true or is this knowledge false? But the question is, if we are receiving this knowledge for the first time, how can we possibly recognize it to be true or false unless we already know what is true and false? And so Plato comes to the conclusion that human beings possess innate knowledge of the truth. And so learning really is not new information. Rather, it is almost a type of recollection of what is already present within the human being. And this innate knowledge in the framework of Islam is called the fitrah. You see, it's not that we perceive the truth with our eyes, but rather that we perceive the truth with our insight, the innate knowledge that is present within each and every single one of us in regards to the truth. So how do we use this insight to see God? What's interesting is that in the physical sense, in order to see, you need two different types of light. You need an external light, which is just light from the sun and light bulbs and things of that nature. And you need an internal light, which is a metaphor for the mechanisms of sight. You know, the eye, the optic nerve, the region of the brain that processes images. And only when those two things come together does sight come into play. If the eye is damaged, if you cannot see with your eyes, then you are blind. But if your eyes are perfect and you're in a room without light, then again, you will not be able to see. So in order to have sight, you have to have both lights. And so the insight is no different. We need an internal light, which is the fitrah, which we all possess. But just like the eyes can get damaged and the nerves can get damaged and the part of that brain that processes images can get damaged, so too the fitrah can be skewed. And that can be because of any number of things, right? How we were raised, insincerity, right? Maybe you just have your eyes closed. You don't want to see the truth. Maybe it's arrogance. Maybe it's a bias. Or maybe it's peer pressure or societal pressures. And so we can't really see clearly, even though we have the ability to do so within us. The first step then to see with the insight would be to remove those biases and to see the truth for the purpose of seeing truth and nothing else, with complete and total sincerity. But the second thing is the external light. And when it comes to physical sight, that light comes from the object you are trying to see. And when it comes to God, that would be the light of God, right? And some of that could be found in the creation, right? The universe and science and all the beauty that we see out there. And some of it is from revelation, right, that God has sent. Now, when it comes to revelation specifically, there's a lot out there. Every different religion says different things, and they all claim to be from God or from the truth. So how do you ultimately know that you are seeing the right God? And the answer to that, again, is very simple. The only one who really truly knows what God is like is God. And so why not just ask God? If we were to just say, "Oh God, however you might be, in whatever form, shape, gender, number, whatever form that you have, if you have a religion, show that to me. Allow me to see that religion." And honestly, it is such a powerful statement because number one, if God doesn't exist, and if God doesn't have power, and if he doesn't care, or he doesn't have a religion, these are just words. And you didn't lose anything but a few seconds of your day. But if God is real, and God cares, and God has a religion, then there is no reason that God would not answer your plea. And if God did not answer, and later you come up to the hellfire and God says, "Okay, you're going to hell now because you didn't believe," well, you have an excuse. It's like, "Hey God, I put it in your hands and you didn't show me the way." So it is a very safe approach. It's a very experimental approach that you ask God to show you what God wants. And then you go out and you look for the best possible religion. It's very simple. Now, what's crazy is that a lot of people actually are unwilling or unable to even say this, right? There's many people that I've come up to and I asked them like, "Hey, would you be willing to say this?" And a lot of them say no. And I don't understand what they're losing by saying this, but they say no. And even, people of different faiths, sometimes we talk and we discuss certain things and we can't come to an agreement. And so I say to those people, I say, maybe I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe you're wrong, but God certainly knows. So let's ask God if my way of life is better, that he guides you to my way of life. And if your way of life is better, that he guides me to your way of life, because ultimately the truth is what matters. It's not about Islam being right or Christianity being right or Judaism being right or atheism being right. It's just about being right. And if one of those way of life is better than the others, then I want that way of life. And so when you have that sincere inner light and you have that external light and they come together, then you are finally able to see God.
نور على نور يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء.
Thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video.